Pull up a chair. It's time for stories that hit home and songs that strike a chord. Join us round the table with your favorite country stars. The legendary Joni Harms and Hudson James. It's stories and songs, and it's all just getting started. Hold on to your hats, folks, because tonight Hudson and Joni are sitting down with a true pioneer of country music. Gail Davies wasn't just a singer and songwriter, she shattered ceilings as the first female record producer in the whole dang genre. From her chart-topping hits to her trailblazing spirit, Gail Davies is a force to be reckoned with. Get ready for some real-deal stories and the kind of music that gets your boots stomping.
Well, good. Are you kind of ready to roll, Hudson?
Yeah. Thanks so much for being here, Gail. We are going to just take a few minutes of your time and explore your career. Did you want to start us off, Joni?
Sure. I mean, I'm a big fan, number one, so this is a treat for me to get to visit with you this morning and, hear some of the behind-the-scenes stories, because I've followed you along through the years, and we both have had the pleasure of working with a lot of the same people, including Mr. Jimmy Bowen. I know that I think you were working with him about the same time I was signed to Universal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was also a sound producer at Apple with Jimmy Bowen.
Yeah, well, and then gone on to be the first woman to ever do, producing on your own. I mean, that's just amazing, and man, big kudos to you for that. I'm excited to hear, some of the like I say, how things all got started, and read up on some of the things. But it'd be really fun to just hear about your career from just you here this morning. Why don't you just start at the beginning, Gail, and share some of your story with us, and then we can ask a few questions along the way. And then you had some time in California and quite a few steps before you ever landed in Nashville, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, when I graduated from high school, I moved to Los Angeles, started my career there. Seriously, I worked for A&M Records as a background singer and worked with a lot of people there, a lot of artists. Basically learned my craft, and I was trained by a fellow named Henry Louis, who was Joni Mitchell's engineer. And he told me that he thought I had production abilities. So he started being my mentor. He and his wife became, like parents to me. And at the same time, my brother Ronnie had moved to Los Angeles as well. And Ronnie went on to become a very famous songwriter. He wrote "It Ain't Easy" for David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust album. "Long Hard Climb" for Helen Reddy was the title of a platinum-selling album. Well, he had hits by Three Dogs Night and more. Everybody recorded his songs. Long John Baldry, Joe Cocker, Maria Muldaur. So the two of us were kind of happening there in Los Angeles. And then I started writing songs, and they came out sounding very country. So the publishing company sent me to Nashville in 1975 to do some demos, and I ended up moving here. And I've been here ever since.
And then didn't you do some time on the road with the unbelievable Roger Miller?
Oh, yeah, I toured with Roger Miller. He and I were actually dating.
Really?
And his background singer quit, and he asked if I was still in for a while. And I did, and then he started wanting me to stay and stay and stay. And finally, I just had to quit because I wanted to pursue my own career and not just be a background singer.
Right. Oh, we're all glad you did, but that had to be quite an experience right there. I mean, was he the character that he came across as when, as people who just knew him from his songs? Was he the real character that he came across as from us folks who just knew his songs?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was a lot of fun to be with.
Did you guys write any songs together?
Yeah. Part of the rougher times is why he had just gone through a second divorce, and it was before he married a lady named Mary, who was Kenny Rogers.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wow. Well, what an adventure that had to be. But you got your first record deal in Nashville. Was that with Bowen then, or who did you sign with first?
Actually, I signed with a company called Live Song. That was a subsidiary label of CBS Records. And I was very unhappy with the producer that I worked with. He sort of treated me like a background singer on my own record. So I got out of that deal. My manager ended up getting him to sell my contract to Warner Brothers Records. So I had one album on CBS, and then I moved to Warner Brothers. I did 4 albums with Warner Brothers. Then I moved from there to RCA Records with Joe Galante. I did 2 albums with RCA. One of my own that I co-produced with my buddy Leland Sklar, called Where's the Woman to Go? And then my second album on RCA was a band I put together called Wano Choir. And then after RCA, I went with Jimmy Bowen at MCA.
Cool.
Boy, oh boy. It's amazing how you can get the shuffle around. I mean, you think, at least I did when I first got my first record deal. I thought, well, this is it. I've found my spot, and everything's going to be great. And boy, then it's just the beginning of all kinds of other crazy adventures that you end up on, and heartbreaks, and then it's just like a big roller coaster throughout the whole ride, isn't it? I mean, you get one place and think it's great, and then all of a sudden that dies down, and then you take another chance on something else, and you are certainly the story of that kind of thing taking place.
A lot of it, my team has to do with the heads of the label changing.
Sure.
People sometimes say, well, you should split it around a lot. That's well, no, not really. I was just going with, I went with RCA Records because Warner Brothers, Jimmy Bowen was at Warner Brothers, and he left. And he said, well, your contract's up pretty soon. Why don't you leave and go with me wherever I go? But then he procrastinated about going to his next label. So Joe Galante and RCA came along and offered to sign me. So a lot of it had to do with the heads of the labels moving around and sort of dragging me with them when they went.
Well, that was a good thing, though, and I mean, you've had such a lot of great songs out, and I mean, I just personally think you should even be farther up the ladder than you are. Why don't you tell us some more about just your wonderful experiences and where all this music business has taken you, and some of the highlights and everything like that. I mean, I know that Hudson and I both just want to hear some of your stories.
Your mark on the ladies of country music has always been very interesting to me. Again, it's such an honor to sit down with you and hear the behind-the-music story.
Well, I wrote a book, autobiography called The Last of the Outlaws. And it's not about Willie or Waylon. It's about my 2 brothers and I. There's on the back of the book cover. There's a picture of my 2 brothers and I dressed up in our cowgirl outfit. And my stepfather, who adopted us, called us the Outlaws. So they're both gone now, and so that's why I'm the last of the Outlaws. And the book covers everything, from the beginning, pretty much through the death of both of my brothers.
Gail, I want to thank you for opening up about something so personal during our interview. I can only imagine how difficult it must be to talk about, and I appreciate your willingness to share.
It was, especially that my younger brother was killed in a car wreck by a drunk driver. And I was there and witnessed the entire thing, and it was pretty horrific. He was 2 weeks from graduating from college, and his wife and his 2 little kids in the car with him. And, they survived, but one of them had permanent brain damage. So, it was pretty horrific. And then my older brother, Ronnie Davies, passed away in 2003. So, I'm feeling kind of alone in the world.
Gail, it's normal to feel lonely after losing someone close, even with fame. Those emotions are part of the grieving process. I'm glad you found meaningful ways to honor your brother's memory.
That's right. I can't wait to get your book and read that story. But I mean, you have inspired so many. Some
order it through my website. It comes with a free CD that has all of the songs that are in the book. That's a better deal than going to Amazon. And one of my favorite songs, I recorded a new album that I co-produced with my son, Chris Scruggs. And it's called, just drew a blank, Beyond the Realm of Words. And there's a song on it that I wrote called My Brothers and Me. It's one of my favorite songs.
Oh, wow. How neat is that? Well, you have so many songs that have touched so many people. I mean, I remember so well uncovering it myself and still singing it today as someone is looking for someone like you. What a great song. I mean, and that's been recorded by so many other people in other countries, and your version of it in other languages. I mean, that's just so amazing right there.
Yeah, it's been translated so far into 7 languages. And I think one of my favorite experiences was playing a place in North Wales called Llandudno. And my brother had gone on that tour with me, older brother Ron, and he was just amazed that the entire audience was singing the chorus of Someone is Looking for Someone Like You in Welsh. So that was, he was pretty impressed with that. And it was also George Jones that told me it was one of his favorite songs. And he wrote me a little letter saying that was probably his favorite country song. So there you go.
Wow. Congratulations on that. I bet you still have that letter.
Oh, yes, I do. In fact, I just posted it on my Facebook a couple of days ago because people had asked me about it. So you go to my Facebook page, there it is.
Gail, I'd love to honor your music by covering some of your songs. Are there any particular songs of yours that you would like me to consider for a cover?
Well, of course, Someone is Looking for Stuff Like You. And the other signature song for me is a song I wrote about my grandmother called Grandma's Song.
Okay.
And it starts off with my grandma actually singing an old Irish or Scottish folk song called the Foxharten Song. And she taught me this when I was a child. It was the first song I ever learned to sing. And then when she passed away, I remembered my mother had made a tape of her singing one night when we were all together. And I spliced that onto the front of the song that I wrote in tribute to her. So that's, I think, worthwhile playing.
Oh, for sure. I know the song well. So another one of my favorites of yours. So, I mean, you've got, like I said, so great song.
Do you have other, Joni?
To pick what? Well, I mean, I was even just wondering if you'd like us to put that one you wrote about your brothers. Would you like to share that one or not?
Oh, yeah, My Brothers and Me. Also a song I wrote for Roger Miller called I'm Hungry, I'm Tired. Roger and I stayed up one night after the show, and he started talking about his life and how when he was a child, a baby, in fact, his father died, and his mother, it was during the Great Depression, couldn't take care of all the children. So she sent him to live with his aunt and uncle on a farm in Oklahoma. And he told he never got over being separated from his mother. So the song is about him, basically. One of the verses says,
and what's it called again?
His father died and left him a pictured face. When his mama couldn't feed him, she gave him away. He was raised on an old farm, and he taught himself to sing, but a child without affection is a pitiful thing.
Gail, I'd love to hear about your experiences performing on the Grand Ole Opry. Could you share some memorable moments or stories from your time there?
Yes. Well, strangely enough, I didn't appear on the Opry until the year 2000. on January, I think the 1st, this manager of the Opry, I was out there visiting some friends, I think, went out there to see somebody sing. And the manager was Pete Fisher. And he said, have you ever played on the Opry? I said, no. I said, I used to try to get on the Opry, but the manager at that time told William Morris Agency that booked me that I was too rock and roll for the Grand Ole Opry. Which ain't because Lovely Suno, who was the member at the time, used to sing Bucket to the South, which I wrote every Saturday night. Hamilton used to sing, "Somebody's looking for someone like you." So I thought, I guess my songs are good enough for the Opry, but I'm too rock and roll. But anyway,
Thank goodness for
the first artist performed on the Opry in the year 2000, and from then on I was on quite often. I think the most exciting time for me was that I got a standing ovation twice, once for singing a cappella for John Hartford. Pete Fisher had asked me as I was walking off stage, he said, "We have extra time. Is there another song you'd like to perform?" And I said, "Well, has anybody sang anything in tribute to John Hartford, who had just passed away?" And he said, "No." So I said, I just walked back out without my band and sang "Father Along" and got a standing ovation. So that was probably the most meaningful. In fact, my book starts with talking about that event and how important it was to me.
What a highlight. Wow. Yeah. Things even at the Opry aren't the same as they used to be. Pete Fisher was the first one that had me come on, and I just, it is a place where I can really appreciate them wanting to keep it pure country. But my goodness, you belong there and probably have sung there fairly recently, haven't you?
Well, actually, I didn't. For about 10 years, they didn't invite me back, and I think it had something to do with the fact that I'll be 76 here in a few months, and they're trying to kind of get rid of some of the older artists. But Emmy Lou Harris called me one day, and she said, "You haven't been on the Opry in a while," and I said, "No," and she goes, "Well, I'm going to be on next week. Would you come sing with me?" So Emmy and I have done the Opry together twice, and now we just sang on January 13th. So,
wow.
Kind of
and you got a show coming up together at the Bluebird, too, don't you?
I'm sorry, what?
Emmy Lou I said, you and Emmy Lou have a show coming up together at the Bluebird, too, don't you?
No, we've never done the Bluebird before. I mean, she comes to my show when I play the Bluebird, and once in a while she'll get up and sing with me. But no, we've never.
Okay, that must have been what I saw.
Together.
Well, she's certainly still, out there going, and I know that's another person who's been a huge inspiration for me through the years. She's great, and I'm glad she's still out there like you, still going for it.
Yeah, it was amazing. In fact, she and I did. My son has a radio show called Friends and Neighbors with Chris Grubb. It plays every Friday night after the Friday Night Opry. And Amy and I sang on that a couple of weeks ago, and it was just wonderful. It's hosted, of course, by my son.
Gail, what inspired you to stay true to your music style without changing it over the years?
Right from the beginning. The first album that I did with the producer that was so disrespectful to me. After that, I said I would never, ever let anybody produce me again, because I knew what I wanted to do with my music, and I didn't want to be treated like that ever again in my life. So, I pretty much buckled down right then and there. And, people ask me all the time for advice, and I always tell them, to know your value. Know what you're worth. Don't overestimate your worth. Don't underestimate your worth. But know your value, and you're done. It's like, it's your life. It's your music. And it goes by very quickly. So you don't ever want to. I had a friend of mine, a very famous singer, one time. I mentioned a song. She goes, "Oh, I hated that song." I said, why'd you record it? She said, well, they made me. They sing anything I just want to sing.
And I had a very similar story. Yeah. But that's
well, a lot of us did.
Yeah.
That's the problem, you know. Sometimes the A&R people think they know more about your music than you do. And I think I had the advantage of having been a songwriter. I had a natural feel for the kind of music that worked for me.
right.
And I think it's harder with here. And then, too, when I moved to Nashville, my friend Leland Sklar, who plays bass with James Taylor, said, you know, and Gail, and he said this in an interview with Bass Magazine, he said when Gail Davies moved to Nashville, women were still barefoot, pregnant, and in the vocal booth. So, you know, it was very different when I moved here in the 70s. You know, women didn't have a lot of involvement in their music. They usually had a manager who was either their husband or their husband producer or their husband, you know, a band leader that sort of took care of everything for them. So, you know, I was always very impressed with Barbara Mandrell. She was a tough little girl.
Oh, for sure.
She went a little hard. But, you know, it was very difficult for women in the 70s in Nashville. It wasn't so bad in L.A., you know. I worked with people all the time and in there that just loved my ideas and were supportive. So, you know, and Nashville's changed a lot, too. I think it's easier for women today than it was when I moved here in 1975.
Gail, being the first woman to produce in Nashville must have been a significant milestone. How do you feel your work changed the landscape of the music industry during that time?
Yes, I was the first, you know, record producer to have it excel. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I produced records, but, you know, my mother produced records in our living room, but they never made it into the top 40, you know. So there were no women producers when I moved to Nashville. It was unheard of.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, how did you
I hope so. I was hard to make that happen. And in fact, when I signed with Warner Brothers, I said it would be only on the terms that I would produce my records. And they agreed. And, you know, my first album, the second album I had on Warner Brothers had like 4 songs in the top 10. So I thought that was pretty good.
That's awesome. I was just going to ask you if you would share with our listeners some of the artists that you have produced.
Well, besides myself, you know, I produced a lady named Mandy Barnett for Capitol Records, who's done very well. A girl in England called Nikki Dean, who went on to be sort of a British Broadway star. She's a wonderful singer. And a girl in Japan named Yoshi Sakamoto, who's a very popular Japanese artist. So, yeah, a tribute album, but the tribute album for Web here, where I was producing a different artist every couple of hours, including George Jones and Willie Nelson and Emmylou Harris and Arlie Pride, Dwight Yoakam. I worked with all of these people when I was producing that album, and then I produced a record, a tribute for my brother Ron Davies called Unsung Hero. And on that album, I produced Dolly Parton and let's see, Vince Gill, John Prine, Allison Moore, Shelby Lynn. You know, a lot of wonderful artists that I've been able to work with in the studio.
Gail, being the first woman to produce in Nashville must have been a significant milestone. How do you feel your work changed the landscape of the music industry during that time?
You know, I'd love to hear it when it comes out. So just, you know, send me a text or you've got my email address and
And that's a wrap, folks. A huge thanks to the incredible Gail Davies for gracing our table with her music and stories. If you can't get enough of her classic sound, be sure to find her music on Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, and your favorite streaming platform. And get ready, because next week on Stories Round the Table, we're diving into the heart of country music songwriting. Join us for an unforgettable conversation with Wood Newton, the man behind some of country music's biggest hits. Think Bobby Sue by the Oak Ridge Boys, Kenny Rogers 20 years ago. We'll uncover the stories, inspiration, and the magic that goes into creating those songs that stick with you long after they're over. Until then, keep those country tunes playing, and we'll see you back here next time. And that's a wrap on another great episode of Stories Round the Table. A big thank you to your hosts, Hudson James and Joni Harms, for bringing those heartfelt stories and unforgettable music right to your ears. We're so glad you shared this space with us. Want to stay in the loop about upcoming shows and guests? Be sure to follow us on social media for all the latest news. Until next time, keep those country tunes playing and that love for music strong.